several days is the importance of air quality measurements, because in order to take action to address something, you really need to understand what it is that you're actually addressing. And so many countries lack reliable data on air quality. This past weekend at the Science Policy Business Forum, we partnered with the World Bank and members of the private sector and civil society, UNEP and others, to talk about air quality monitoring innovations and how we can best tackle it. And in our experience in the United States, some of these partnerships have also involved not just working with the private sector and other aspects of civil society, but also making sure we had really good partnerships between the federal level, state, local, and tribal partners as well. With, for example, under our Clean Air Act, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency sets national ambient air quality standards for 6 common pollutants. But the states and tribal groups are responsible for ensuring their compliance, and there are different ways to do this. And a great example of an initiative that we've all worked together on, which may sound silly, but I think has had a real impact in making a difference, is the establishment of bike paths. Something really simple. But there's been a great partnership between the federal level in the United States and the state and local levels to make sure we have those bike paths. And that, of course, has then eased use of cars, each of those the pollutants that come out of the use of the cars, and really help to address the air pollution question. And at this point, I'm probably well over my 2 minutes, but there are several other examples I could give. And we're also trying to use these partnerships with some of our colleagues overseas. And one of the pledges that we announced during this UNEA was expansion of our megacities partnership specifically on air quality. Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up. What was the greatest challenge that you faced, and how did you overcome it in some of the partnerships that you've been talking about that have been successful, and just practically apply those for us? Third time lucky. Remember, you got it on the third. No. How many delegates does it take to turn on a UN microphone? Here, why don't you just make the, there you go.
They wanted you just to come over. But I think this is a perfect example of what the greatest challenge is. Communication, honestly. And this is a perfect example of it. Making sure that everybody is really speaking the same language and what they're talking about. And that's why the science and the data and having that data is so important. Because when everybody's working off of the common knowledge base, you're really able to move forward on this. When you're all talking about slightly different things, that's a great challenge. So it's sort of making sure that there's clarity in expectation, clarity in what is happening going forward, and clarity in the data.
Great point. Clarity in communication, clarity in expectation. Let me call upon Shazia Rafi to talk a little bit about Asia and your experiences there, and whether you struggle with the same issues. Microphone.
So thank you. It's our first UNA, so as a civil society organization, we're very pleased to be here. We are working with a particular segment of both government and society, which is the legislatures in Asia, using the same model that was developed in the United States when the Clean Air Act came into force, and then the EPA was set up with strict regulations. Essentially, that was a very successful model. It took 30 years to go from New York City, which the buildings were covered with smog, to what it is today, where the air quality on a daily basis is generally good. And so we are applying the same model, looking at the SDGs, which are the targets 3.9, 11.6, and 12.4, and working with members of parliament in Asian countries who are on their energy, environment, health, and finance committees, along with the World Bank and UNEP. And the biggest challenge really is that taking the decisions has an economic cost to them, has a kind of retrofitting, transitioning from dirtier sources of energy. So one of the things that has been a successful breakthrough is the World Bank beginning to do studies on the economic cost of pollution and also providing annual figures for that. So that when decision makers are seeing that, it is then moving them in the direction of we've got to tighten enforcement.
You talk about the World Bank as being a critical factor there,
Yes.
and that was game-changing for you. I'm interested, what in your own behavior or your own observations and decision-making did you find was game-changing for you?
I think, well, on a personal level, what was game-changing for me is I'm a mother of a severe asthmatic. So for me, this is not just a theoretical issue. But seeing that, you know, I worked with Mexico quite a lot during the early years when they were struggling with this, and seeing the effect that it had, the fact that my own daughter could go and visit there on a singing tour and not end up, you know, having to take very strong medication, showed me that it was possible to make that change. And there it was both the government, the legislature, and civil society. So the fact that leadership in this context means bringing together all these elements, the intergovernmental system, the governments, civil society, and the legislature, which is the one that has to both make the laws, give the budgets, and then implement them. And I have seen responses from members of parliament of all parties when you lay out the economic costs to them, when you lay out the impact it's having on agriculture. But these are choices that are painful economically.
And critically, I'd add to that the private sector, obviously.
Absolutely. They're the ones who have to deliver the renewable energy solutions.
Exactly, and you know, are critical in the fight against air pollution. I'd like to bring into this conversation Ms. Hu Weiwei, who's the CEO and founder of Mobike. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about the idea behind Mobike and the impact that it's had. Where are you?
Here.
My eyesight's not good anymore. There you are. Yes, please. And by the way, I'd just like the room to know a very interesting fact that I came across was that Mobike users have cycled 5.6 billion kilometers. And you know what? That is the equivalent of reducing carbon emissions by 1.26 million tons. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. I speak Chinese. 是这样的，就是其实摩拜是用科技的手段，让人们去让骑自行车这件事情变得非常的方便和可行。So I want wait someone. Yeah. 对，就是摩拜是用科技的手段让自行车回归城市这件事情变得非常的可行，非常的方便。因为在中国，移动互联网非常的发达。因为每个人拥有智能手机，所以每个人就成了一个重要的信息节点。那我们通过技术的手段，让有200年历史的自行车重新回归到城市。我们给自行车装上了智能锁，这把锁其实只要通过下载 App 就可以轻松的去打开这个锁，并且能够让人们非常轻松的能够去骑这个自行车。科技其实是让人们的生活在很多方面提高了效率，也让很多生产的工具能够重新的组织。那其实商业在过去的这么多年里面发生了很多的变化。以前是你买一个东西，你买一个商品，那个商品就少，在这个世界上变少了一部分。那其实互联网的科技的商业是说，如果有一个产品，人们都非常喜欢它，都去用它，那这个产品的商业价值就变得更加的大。这个是我说的第一点，说用科技的手段，让人们能够非常方便的去参与环保这件事情。那第二就是说，改变人们的思维，让人们重新去思考什么样的生活方式才是更好的。那我这里其实有一组数据，比如说在北京每天有400多万辆小汽车出行，但其实我们去认真的看这个数据，只有大概1/3的人这个用汽车出行的距离在5公里以内，那就相当于说有120万辆的汽车其实是可以用自行车来取代的。那其实我们同时我们也可以看到说，在中国的深圳，因为有了摩拜单车，很多公交的盲点达到了就公共交通无法到达的地方， 都被摩拜单车给99%多的一个覆盖，所以人们因为有了自行车，因为非常容易的能够骑到这个自行车，所以也能够非常容易的去参与到环保这件事情当中来，能够让零排放的地球变成一种可能性。谢谢。
We heard from the delegate in the U.S. talking about bike paths. We're talking about mobikes and the impact that you've had now. What I think of interest to people in this room will be to understand the technology that you've developed behind it in order to have made it so successful. There may be other delegates who are interested in looking into this. Talk to us about the technology specifically and how you did it practically.
其实我刚才就是介绍，摩拜单车并没有从底层技术去重新的发明，但是我们通过互联网的手段把它更加有效的组织。我来举两个最有效的技术，比如说我们通过 GPS、GPRS 的物联网 IoT 的手段，能够让手机和自行车进行交互。当人们需要一辆自行车的时候，你只要通过这个手机和这辆自行车连接，并且告诉这个自行车让它打开锁，然后它就把锁打开了。这个是我们 IoT 的一个技术。那另外我讲到说，因为这个自行车是共享的，这个共享的自行车的这么一个类别其实是非常新的。这么新的一个类别，我们对它进行了产品的重新定义。那这个重新定义就是说，我们希望它非常的免维护。我们在整个生命周期的设计上，第一代自行车我们设计了4年免维护的周期。那在这个设计里面，我们让轴传动没有链条的来驱动这个自行车。我们通过动能和太阳能来发电，让这把智能锁永远都能够实时在线。那同时，我们也跟陶氏化学这样的公司去合作研发，能够不用充气的轮胎。这样的话，这辆自行车就永远不会没有气。所以我们其实是重新定义了产品，并且重新用互联网的方法去组织了这个产品，所以就有了这样子人们非常方便的随处可用的自行车的存在。
Thank you very much. That was very interesting,
yeah.
Very informative. Thank you. The Cuban delegate would like to weigh in at this point. Would you like to talk about air pollution, or shall we move on to soil? The Cuban delegate has requested the floor. Cuba?
Sí, muchas gracias. Realmente quisiera trasladarle la experiencia de Cuba con respecto al trabajo en la contaminación, que como particularidad tenemos un ministerio que es de Ciencia, Tecnología y Medio Ambiente, y por tanto nos ha dado la posibilidad de poder integrar desde los orígenes la ciencia y la tecnología a los problemas ambientales. Esto ha permitido, por ejemplo, trazar un plan de Estado para el cambio climático, donde el cambio climático a veces no lo vinculamos muy directamente con la contaminación, pero en el caso de Cuba sí tiene una vinculación directa, debido a las características de nuestra isla, ¿no? Pequeño estado insular, largo y estrecho. La elevación del nivel medio del mar provoca una salinización al agua de los mantos freáticos, y eso aumenta la salinidad en el agua del consumo, y es uno de los tratamientos que nosotros tenemos que tener en cuenta con un enfoque desde el punto de vista de la ciencia. Además, tenemos planes para poder controlar la contaminación ambiental a todo lo largo del país. De hecho, tenemos un registro de todas las fuentes contaminantes, tanto en industria como en los asentamientos poblacionales, con programas para poderlo abordar, y hemos comprendido, como se ha intercambiado aquí, de que la principal tarea es lograr de que sea un compromiso de todo ciudadano, de todo habitante de este planeta, que si no se compromete, por muchos incentivos que hagamos y por muchas represiones que pongamos fiscales, realmente no vamos a ganar la batalla. Eso es un problema que tiene que partir del del compromiso que haga cada uno de nosotros como habitantes de este planeta. Además, tenemos programas de divulgación que nos permiten a nosotros valorar cómo es que se va incorporando en cada una de las escuelas, de los niños, este tipo de compromiso con el medio ambiente. Desde una cosa tan sencilla como tirar una basura al suelo o guardarla en el bolsillo, aunque no esté un tacho de basura. Eso es una cuestión que tratamos de trasladarle a todos desde las primeras generaciones. Y es una de las cuestiones que hemos ido evaluando y ponderando en el avance. Además, tenemos un trabajo de hace más de 20 años con todas las vulnerabilidades del país, sobre todo en áreas costeras. Estamos en estos momentos desarrollando un plan de desarrollo hasta el 2030 aprobado por las altas direcciones del gobierno, donde tenemos el empeño también de incorporar a la matriz energética, que en estos momentos es aproximadamente el 3% del aporte de energía renovable, hasta un 24% hasta el año 2030, lo que demuestra un compromiso no solamente social, sino también político, con el hecho de la reducción de los gases contaminantes. Esto es más o menos la experiencia de Cuba, y muchas gracias por la oportunidad que me han dado para poder intercambiar este tiempo.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the broad strokes there of a lot of the issues that we are going to delve into. At this stage, I'd like to turn from the specificity of air pollution to soil pollution and get into that a little bit more. We have a representative from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations here in the audience, Mr. Alexander Jones. I would really love for you to share with us some of the successful stories that you've experienced and you've observed that allow farmers to reduce soil pollution and at the same time still maintaining a highly productive and cost-effective agricultural sector. Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much. Obviously a very vast topic and hard to approach in such a short environment, but one thing I would like to say is that in soil management, we have fairly clear guidelines. We have an acceptance of what the main challenges are. FAO, together with many other partners, including the Global Soil Partnership and ITPS this year, launched the voluntary guidelines on sustainable soil management. I apologize for the acronym. VGSSM is unpronounceable, I know. This has a fairly open and uncontroversial catalog of 10 main items, which are solutions. These are very action-oriented. They're recommendations. They're easily understandable. And it's not often that we have such a broad consensus around these. I can remind you that the guidelines on tenure took many, many years to negotiate. These are largely uncontroversial. Where we have the challenge has been in their implementation, because implementing these carries very substantial costs. And it's one thing to tell a smallholder farmer, be very careful of what you put into your soil, because it's going to be very hard to get it out if you don't want it there. But it's another to show that they can take alternatives without accruing additional costs. And here we come to the main crux. Obviously, farmers are risk averse by definition. They have to be. Smallholder farmers are the ultimate risk averse actors. They cannot afford this. So the question is,
how do you move them from the risk aversion to the practical application of alternative solutions?
Well, the buzzword is de-risking, and of course we all use buzzwords a lot. The question is, de-risking also carries costs. In industrialized agriculture, this is through farm insurance and so forth. In developing countries, we often don't have instruments, although some are developing. First of all, we need to make the technology cheaper and more approachable. The second one is to provide de-risking through financial instruments. And some of that, I would say a large part of that, has to come from the private sector, because the private sector is the one bringing 90% of the resources to the table. And we really need their involvement to de-risking it through all kinds of cultivation, cooperative schemes, outgrowers, and so forth.
I'd like the Director General of the World Agroforestry Center to weigh in on this. Tony Simons, do you agree with that?
Yes, we do. And I'd ask everyone to change to channel 7, which is the language of scientific evidence.
Is everyone on channel 7?
Because many of our decisions and policymakers have to be based on scientific evidence. And And we're grateful to work with a wide range of partners, including FAO, on quantifying a lot of the problems involved in soil and soil pollution, and particularly the vitality of soils, the soil organic matter or soil organic carbon. And we've developed techniques to assess that within, staggering accuracies, 92, 94%. But we've got to get real about the way we use fertilizers and the way we manage those soils, because we're losing so much soil, and soil is a pollutant to water and everything else. We're losing 75 billion tons of soil a year. That's what we lose. It's a staggering amount. And inside that, there's a staggering amount of nutrients. 400 million tons of nitrogen, 800 million tons of potassium, 150 million tons of phosphorus. These are pollutants somewhere else. And how do soils hold nutrients? They hold it if they've got thriving ecologies and organic matter to physically hold those in. So if we're to get real about our agriculture and our standards, we've got to use that evidence to underpin policy. And there's only one country in the world, and thank God for Ireland, that legislates for minimum levels of soil organic carbon if you want subsidies, if you want to be able to continuously crop your land. And we've got to get real about those negative externalities of growing food and how it pollutes our soils and the rest of the planet.
Tony, I want you to switch to channel 8 now, which is the science of proven practical solutions. What is it that you have seen in scientific development and innovation that is a solution to what you're talking about?
It's rapid and cheap assessments to guide targeted fertilizer use, reduction. It's about the zoning and targeting of crops. It's looking to rehabilitate industries, and very important ones. In Africa here, Africa produces 3/4 of the world's cocoa. Côte d'Ivoire, one single country, 40%. Côte d'Ivoire have lost 94% of their Upper Guinean forests. We know that from evidence, 94%. They've received $120 billion in revenue from cocoa. They've lost a $150 billion asset. They've missed out. So we've got to bring that evidence on the cost of our actions and the cost of interventions back to a real-world situation where we can not just have a positive cash flow, but we're making a profit from agriculture and not polluting the planet.
Is there anyone else at this stage that would like to ask a question or just weigh in on this discussion when it comes to sharing practical solutions to reduce soil pollution? Anyone else? Nope. Do you want to add anything to just button this up? Tony?
What do we want? We need about 250 grams of carbohydrate a day, 200 grams of vegetables, 200 grams of fruit, 75 grams of protein, about 60 grams of fat. We could grow all of that for each person in about a quarter of this room. But we're a bit more greedy than that. We want more. We want animal-based products. We want those high-end luxury things. We want different trophic levels of the things that we eat. And to do that, we're polluting our planet. And we don't have these 5 or 6 planets that Johan Rockström and others caution us against. So if we are to reduce ourselves polluting our agricultural base, we've got to get down and pass some very rigorous policies. Because, Sri Lanka held a fantastic workshop about 2 months ago around the title, Land Health is National Wealth. And they're realizing that connection between the health and the vitality of their land and the food that they produce in the society that they want.
Thank you. Let's move to freshwater pollution and talk about the pollution that enters the soil that ultimately ends up in our freshwater resources, be it the surface or groundwater. I'd like to ask the delegate of Guatemala to speak a little bit to us now about their plan to clean the Motagua River. The Minister of Environment is here. Please talk to us a little bit about the practical solutions that you've been pursuing that have actually worked. Can you turn on your microphone? Press the speak button. If it doesn't work, press it again. Guatemala? Going once? All right. You're probably not even in the... Are you here? Oh, there is Guatemala. It's an empty seat. Thank you. Well, I guess we're not going to hear about their solutions. Hopefully, the delegate will join us a little bit later. I want to talk a little bit then about wetlands that can play a really significant role in pollution control and water purification. Is the Secretary General of the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands in the room? I'd like her to share some of those practical solutions.
I am here.
Oh, thank goodness. Yes, please give us an idea of what has worked and how you were able to make it work.
Absolutely, yes. So I'm going to focus on wetlands, which are bodies and ecosystems with water, freshwater, marine and coastal. But I want to speak especially about freshwater wetlands because they are very hugely impacted by pollution. Most 80% of the wastewater is dumped into the wetlands without treatment. And then it goes through the rivers to the sea. So it's very important to address this ecosystem. But as you said, they also provide solutions for pollution mitigation and management. And in particular, the wetlands act as natural water filters, and often they are referred to as the Earth's kidneys, because they filter the pollutants, they filter sewage, they filter pesticides, and they can be used in a very effective way to address pollution. In the Convention on Wetlands, we have 169 contracting parties, and I'm going to share a couple of examples of the types of solutions that parties have already put in place. So, for example, in the Nakivubo swamp in Kampala, they're using wetlands as a way to filter the waste coming from the cities, but also from industrial waste. And the estimate benefits of 1.8 million a year. Another example from India, the East Kolkata wetlands are filtering also the city's sewage. And what is very interesting is that the water that comes out, treated, is then used for pisciculture and agriculture, benefiting 50,000 people. So you can get also social benefits. And finally, another example is how countries are now constructing and engineering wetlands as an approach to treat pollution. So, for example, in Taiwan, this is one of the strategies that is being put in place as part of comprehensive approaches to pollution management.
What is your best advice for delegates of every single country in this room about how to engineer their wetlands to be successful? Like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that you can share with us?
So the main message is use and conserve your natural wetlands, sustainably use them as part of your pollution strategies, and also you can construct and build wetlands as a way to manage waste. But I would like to emphasize that not very often we think about this as part of a pollution strategy. So we need to step up the conservation, sustainable use, and restoration of wetlands as part of our strategies for a pollution-free planet.
Thank you. The delegate from Qatar would like to weigh in. Please do. Qatar? No delegate from Qatar. All right. Well, would anyone like to weigh in at this point? A few hands at the back there. Who are we pointing at?
Bonjour, je suis Saïd de la société d'État Marchik Ahmed. Cette une société d'État créée en 2008 sur instruction de Sa Majesté le Roi Mohamed VI. Et c'est une société qui gère un territoire de près de 20 000 hectares dans lequel il y a une lagune qui est le sujet de cette création. Et cette lagune a connu une dégradation, une grande dégradation durant presque un siècle. En fait, notre réaction et notre travail consiste en transformer la nuisance en plaisance. Ce site, dans la population de la ville de Nador, donc ce site se trouve au nord, c'est-à-dire sur la mer Méditerranéenne, donc le côté nord du Royaume du Maroc. Et c'est un site, comme j'ai dit, de 20 000 hectares, dont 11 500 hectares, qui est la lagune de Marchika. Cette lagune est d'une longueur de 25 km et d'une largeur de 7 km. Et sur des années, la couleur de l'eau était noirâtre, verdâtre, allant vers le noirâtre sur les bords de la lagune. Et presque le pourtour qui fait environ 70 km était complètement une décharge d'une gravité extraordinaire. Aujourd'hui, après l'intervention de Marchika Med et de l'agence qui a été créée pour, donc nous avons, comme j'ai dit, transformé cette nuisance en plaisance et nous avons remarqué un retour de poissons et d'oiseaux, un grand retour qui est bien sûr au bénéfice des citoyens, des pêcheurs, qui pêchaient et qui pêchent toujours bien sûr sur cette lagune. Les solutions que nous avons abordées, c'est le nettoyage des berges, au début à l'aide des machines, et on s'est rendu compte très rapidement, pour respecter d'ailleurs, c'est un site classé Ramsar, il était classé Ramsar avant même notre intervention, et nous avons changé un peu la manière de travailler. Au lieu de travailler avec des machines, nous avons fait travailler presque 700 personnes, et qui sont les riverains qui habitent autour de cette lagune. Et ça, c'était une première. Pourquoi les riverains? Parce qu'ils se sont appropriés ce site et c'est eux-mêmes aujourd'hui qui le protègent. Donc ça a duré environ 3 ans et demi, presque 4 ans. À aujourd'hui, bien sûr, il y a toujours un nettoyage d'entretien. Mais le grand nettoyage est déjà derrière nous. Aussi, nous avons ouvert une nouvelle passe. Nous avons fait des modèles mathématiques qui nous ont montré qu'il fallait ouvrir une nouvelle ouverture entre cette lagune et la mer Méditerranéenne. Cette ouverture a permis une régénération des eaux et un changement du fond de la lagune.
Okay, I just want to jump in here for a moment. What is the one driving factor that the private sector in Morocco and your role in it has actually been something that has changed the game? What is the one thing that drove that transformation?
Donc, nous sommes l'État, nous sommes une société d'État et nous sommes un établissement public. Donc le privé n'intervient pas maintenant, le privé intervient bien sûr pour la construction et le développement de cette ville qui connaissait cette grande dégradation, surtout de cette lagune. Les villes qui donnent sur cette lagune donc ne pouvaient pas se développer avec les odeurs, avec la problématique qui existait. Donc je continue, si vous permettez, en disant que nous avons changé de site important qui connaissent. Donc c'est les anciennes lagunes de la ville, les lagunes de traitement des eaux usées. Il y avait des lagunes qui étaient au bord de la grande lagune de Marchika, et on a transformé ces lagunes de traitement d'eau usée à un parc aux oiseaux. Et ce parc de presque une soixantaine d'hectares est aujourd'hui déjà construit, réhabilité, et qui voit ce retour des oiseaux migrateurs. Donc on les voit vivre. Et donc c'est une vie aujourd'hui, que ce soit pour le poisson, les oiseaux, mais surtout pour l'être humain qui tournait le dos jadis à cette lagune et qui aujourd'hui bénéficie de ce qui a été fait. 2 mots, cette expérience est aujourd'hui partagée avec la Côte d'Ivoire et avec Madagascar. sur la lagune des Briées qui connaît les mêmes problématiques et sur la baie de Cocody en plein Abidjan.
Okay,
Et
thank you.
merci.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'll have to stop you there for a moment. I would like to get a different perspective on what you're saying, because unlike countries like Guatemala, Uganda and India that there was an earlier reference to, there are many countries that face severe water shortages, and Israel is one of them. And I'd like to ask the Minister of Environmental Protection of Israel to tell us a little bit about how wastewater has been changed from a problem to a solution.
Thank you very much. We spoke in last minutes about the problem of the water pollution, but our way to solve this problem was to bring the problem to be the source of our power, to be the source of solution for our necessity. It's not secret that we have a lot of problem with water, with fresh water in Israel. It's a very famous Israeli joke that Moses was the worst navigator over the world because he suggested to bring us to the only piece of land in the Middle East without water, without oil, and without gas. But still, now we have only, even on this stage, we have only something about 60% of freshwater needs of the state of Israel, and it will be much more worse in the future. Then one of the ways to solve this problem was reusing of wastewater. Now we succeeded in Israel to bring ourselves to the level of the 86% of reusing of wastewater. 86% of our wastewater is reusing mostly for agriculture. Now something like 50% of our needs for agriculture are coming from the reusing of wastewater, of course, after treatment. And I think we are now the leading country in the world in this context, and Israeli experience can be very, very interesting for many countries that have the problem with the water resources. What is the way to do it? The secret is the holistic approach. You need very strict regulation, of course, of treatment of industrial wastewater and of the domestic wastewater. You need the pricing policy. We need to raise the price for fresh water. It's the only way to create a kind of economic reasons to people to use the wastewater and to try to develop the technologies that you need for it. The third secret is, of course, the technologies. When you created the right economic situation and right economic reason, it will bring, as usually in Israel, the special technologies for treatment of wastewater. And this is exactly the way that we succeeded to bring and to build our system of reusing of wastewater.
So to get that balance, Minister, between regulation, price, technology, all of these factors that were critical in making your projects in Israel successful, what is the most important lesson that you learned in getting all of that to work?
Our answer is to bring all of them together, because if you will concentrate only on one of these issues, I think we will not able to achieve the same levels that we succeeded to do it. But when you are coming with holistic approach, by the way, we created a special instrumental framework for this holistic approach for management of our water resources. Special authorities that representative of different ministers are sitting there, and together we can to decide about other water policies. The Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Environmental Protection, of course, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Finance, and all of the decision from the issue of price to the issue of the management are decision together with all of the different governmental agencies that they are responsible and they are interested in the using of water.
I'm interested in the delegate of Singapore to add thoughts here. Singapore has also been successful in dealing with wastewater. And I'm interested, is it the same approach that you're taking? Are you doing something different? Is it as holistic? I'd like Singapore to weigh in.
Thank you. For Singapore, we've taken one step further than what Israel has done. We do also recycle water, a lot from sewage. We capture every drop of water that falls on our island, but we not just use it for non-domestic use, we actually drink it. And this is possible because you can actually filter and process the water to be so clean that in its processed form, without remineralization, it's actually corrosive. So what we do is we put it back into the reservoir and then recycle it back into the drinking system.
How do you do that? How do you put it back into the reservoir?
So basically, first, you must have a holistic plan to capture the water, whether it's storm water, whether it's used water, and then use, in this case, the best technology available today is RO, reverse osmosis. Process it, put it back in the reservoir for storage, as well as for reprocessing together with the other sweet water so that we can get a consistent taste for the water. But we do this because, like Israel, water is an existential problem. Half of water comes from Malaysia. The other half comes from rain, the other comes from rain, recycled water, as well as desalination. And we have been fortunate in embarking on this strategy because for the last 3 to 4 years, at the heel of El Nino, we've had 3 straight years of droughts where water from Malaysia as well as from rain were disrupted. And because we had these 2 standby systems to ensure this weather resilient, we were able to continue supply water both to industry as well to household. And I think this is a very big lesson for everybody because at the end of the day, you must not waste every drop of water that comes to you. You must recycle it, reuse it over and over again because come the day when weather is not reliable or climate change comes in its worst form, you better keep the water that you have already.
So with climate change and unpredictable weather patterns, what is the biggest challenge you've had in adjusting to that and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think there are 2 things we have to overcome. Number 1 is this yucky factor. People think about what they're going to drink from, and we have to make sure they're comfortable, that they are drinking something clean, healthy, hygienic. But the most important thing we have to also overcome is that now that we have moved away from being by being weather resistant, we are now becoming energy reliant. So the next frontier to break really is to be able to produce water at with less energy. And we have challenged our R&D institutions to actually achieve what we call big, hairy, audacious goals. And that is to produce even desalinated water at just 1 kilowatt hour per meter cube. I think the breakthrough is close and it's possible to do so. What we need is to have time to scale it to an operation that can supply water on a large quantity.
Thank you. The delegate from Finland would like to add some thoughts here.
Thank you, Jane. It's a miracle it's working. The microphone, I mean.
It's only the front row that's working. This is very suspicious.
So I think that my idea was to tell something how to make this change that many of us is looking for, how to make it happen and what government can do to participate as many stakeholders as possible to make the change that is needed. We need radical change, decoupling GDP from use of natural resources and environmental impacts. We need radical change, paradigm change from linear economy to the circular economy. But how to do that? So we have developed several tools, and if you allow, I may give some concrete examples.
As long as you don't read all those papers in front of you. You're not going to read all that, are you? Oh, they're just scribbled notes, yes.
Handwritten notes. Don't be afraid. First of all, how to encourage the innovation power of private sector to participate. We have used, for example, idea or concept competition. Please bring us your ideas, and then the best one are taken forward by the public support for research and development. Then we have given guidance for public procurement. For example, how to set criteria to use more recycled or renewable material in building projects. Then green deals. Green Deal, the idea is that we can do more than the legislation requires. And we are discussing with the whole sectors of economy and representatives of several branches of businesses how they could commit, for example, to reduce pollution more than is regulated. And the best part of this is that the commitment of private actors is very high when they are doing themselves. Then some other examples. We have published, for example, demonstration area of polluted soil. Please come, companies who have technologies and solutions. Show what you can do. That kind of demonstration areas are needed.
What are some of the best technologies and solutions that you've seen in Finland? Like, what have you supported in the private sector innovations that have been amazing?
Actually, I think that the best are not yet seen. We are so far from the target to save the planet that the best are not yet seen. But we have to push the development forward so that most of the stakeholders start to think new way. Well, for example, it was very interesting to listen to recycling of water, how they purify the wastewater in Israel or Singapore. Good. We have set launched 3 pilots where 3 different technologies are tested how to get the valuable nutrients from the wastewater in safe way back to the fields. And we need many kind of new thinking. Something I need to add, legislation. On Thursday, I'm going to propose a new ministry's decree how we are going to ease up the secondary use or recycle of some secondary materials coming from industries in construction sector. So this kind of things, we just need to make a lot of new kind of decisions. And where we have get these ideas what to do, we decided to make the first circular economy roadmap in the world. How we did that? We invited more than 1,000 stakeholders to bring their ideas. Dozens of proposals came, and now we are trying to take them forward with different means or measures we can have.
Thank you, and good luck with putting forward that legislation. Will it pass?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call upon Belgium to say a few words here. Actually, it says Mrs. Belgium, so I don't know if there's a Mr. Belgium that I should call upon afterwards, but Belgium, how do we get the best in terms of engaging the private sector and individual citizens in order to develop some of these practical solutions?
Here Belgium. I am, at the other side, please. Here I am.
Mrs.
Yes.
Belgium.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. I think it's important that, of course, in the beginning, you ask the private sector what you can do and you get them involved. But I think it's very important that you continuously contact them and speak to them. And also, you can see if you get the targets. If not, you have to find together solutions. So I think it's very important that you do that the whole time further on and see how you get to the target. I think that's one of the things we do in Belgium to get very good results on waste management and so on.
How are you able to be so successful in reaching out and connecting and pushing ideas forward, particularly to engage private sector with public sector?
Because we speak to each other constantly, but what's also important, I think, in Belgium, we did a lot of education. We get young people to be involved, and they also show their parents and grandparents how they can recycle, what they can do with waste, and how you have to manage it. And that was very successful in Flanders, in Belgium, and that's why we have so good results. So I think it's very important to have a very good education and to have children with you so they can also educate their parents, but also their children further on.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move now to marine and coastal pollution in a little bit more detail, because, you know, let's face it, our oceans have become basically our trash cans. If you've been swimming in the ocean or on a boat or sailing or just looking at it on the beach, you can see all that plastic in the ocean. Do you know that more than 8 million tons every year of plastic enters the seas? And if we continue like this, there's actually going to be more plastic in our seas than fish in our oceans by 2050. So I want to get into this a little bit more, and I'd like to invite the Minister of Environment and Energy of the Maldives here to talk a little bit about the innovative solutions that are being pursued to stem the tide of plastics. Minister. This means no? Okay. All right, so no Maldives. I believe Samoa, are you here? I don't believe Samoa is in the room, are you? Or any other small island nation that grapples with this. I would really love to hear some perspective from you. Anyone want to jump in? You're not a small island nation, but you have something to say. Morocco.
Merci Madame la modératrice. Merci aussi aux organisateurs d'avoir organisé ce débat, cette réflexion partagée comme un exercice solidaire aussi de partager les bonnes pratiques innovantes et intelligentes. Je voudrais partager avec vous en fait un parcours un petit peu intéressant, mais il a une particularité marocaine. Il a deux aspects en fait particuliers. Le premier aspect, c'est son mode de gouvernance, c'est-à-dire, je parle du PNDM, le Plan National des déchets ménagers assimilés. Et traversons 10 ans, on a pu en fait arriver à le transmettre comme un champ de création d'emplois et de la mobilisation verte. Je peux parler de deux volets brièvement. Le premier volet, c'est-à-dire lors de 10 ans, on a pu entamer, restaurer au bout en perspective de 2021, de 24 centres de valorisation avec des unités de valorisation soit de biogaz, de plastique, de FDR, qui est une matière à utiliser pour le secteur privé. Deuxième volet, c'est le développement des filières. Et je voulais bien, si vous permettez, partager avec vous une petite expérience qui est très intéressante pour deux raisons. La première, qu'on a pu faciliter le passage de l'informel au formel. C'est très intéressant, c'est-à-dire des coopératives, des gens qui ont été dans plein exercice de leur en fait, travail de valorisation dans l'informel, dans les normes, en fait, en respectant pas les normes environnementales et aussi pour l'aspect aussi de la création de l'emploi et surtout de partenariat. Alors, le développement de la filière des batteries usagées, depuis 2014, on a lancé cette étude, l'étude a été finalisée, on a groupé le secteur privé, notre ministère, le ministère du Développement durable, le ministère de l'Industrie, on a déjà introduit une arrêté conjointe et après on a accompagné plus de 10 000 personnes qui travaillent dans l'informel pour les organiser dans un GIE, groupe d'intérêt économique, et après maintenant ils sont organisés. Et le troisième volet qui est très intéressant, nous sommes en pleine, après l'adoption par Sa Majesté le roi Mohammed VI Hafidahullah et dans le Conseil de ministres de la stratégie nationale de développement durable, On est en pleine en fait, opérationnalisation, soit au terme des études, aussi en termes des PAD, c'est-à-dire le plan d'action de développement durable au niveau sectoriel et aussi au niveau territorial, pour créer cette plateforme de lancer ces filières, les 7 filières, la filière des batteries usagées qui est déjà mise en place, les batteries des pneus usés, les papiers au carton, les huiles usagées, les déchets, la construction et les déchets électroniques et électriques. L'étude prévoit la création de 50 000 à 70 000 emplois. Oui, c'est bon. Et l'important, c'est la création de cette plateforme entre le public, les institutions, et le privé, et la société civile, et aussi les collectivités territoriales. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted you to finish your thought. I wanted to ask you actually about the evaluation centers that you're talking about, that you're going to establish. You said there was one for plastics, and since we didn't really get into that, because the other 2 delegates unfortunately weren't here, could you tell us a little bit about what is it that you're intending about the evaluation centers for plastics?
Excusez-moi, on a déjà 3 centres de valorisation à Fès, à Marrakech et à Meknès. Là, on a des unités de valorisation de biogaz et de plastique, c'est-à-dire on a à Azza, par exemple, à Rabat, excusez-moi, à Rabat aussi, on a une coopérative à Azza, le centre de valorisation, c'est une associative professionnelle ONG qui s'est organisée elle-même en coopération avec le ministère et aussi le secteur privé pour créer une unité de valorisation de plastique. Sachant que le Maroc, il a déjà introduit la parafiscalité, c'est-à-dire il a introduit l'écotaxe pour renforcer notre caisse, le FNE, le Fonds contre la pollution, le Fonds national contre la pollution environnementale.
That's interesting. Thank you very much for that. Turkmenistan would like to weigh in. Could I invite the delegate to speak? Can you press the button? Turkmenistan? Turkmenistan is here. We were here like 2 minutes ago. Could I invite anyone else to speak while we're determining where they are or if they're here? Estonia?
Yes, thank you. I would like to speak a little bit about how the government, the public sector can increase resource efficiency and thus reduce pollution. Namely, electronic governance. Usually it is considered a way how the public sector administrates its own structure, but in Estonia we consider electronic government as a way to offer services to people. One benefit is paperless governance, of course, but the main result what we have seen in Estonia is that our public institutions have been closing down their servicing halls. They reduced their office space, which means people don't visit public institutions anymore. For example, in Estonia, more than 95% of people declare their taxes electronically. So they don't have to visit any office to do it. And it's the same situation with other institutions. Therefore, people save time and will lessen the need to travel. This way, it's good for the air quality, But most important, it's very convenient for the people. So we don't need any special regulation. We don't have to force them to do or to change their habits. It's just so convenient to them that they save time, they save resources, and save money. Thank you.
What have you seen in Estonia that's worked the best in your view?
Offering convenient solutions. Like, for example, the best solution I can describe is electronic medical prescription. If you have need for any medicine, you just go to any drugstore. You don't need any paper or any receipt for this. You just show your ID card, and they say that we see in the database that your doctor has prescribed such medicine to you, and you just get it. So it's much less hassle, much less paper, and much easier for everybody.
Thank you. I'd like to call on the delegate of Sri Lanka to share some thoughts.
The microphone, madam. Okay, thank you.
There you go. It's always a surprise.
Yes, just wanted to address two of the issues that we discussed before. Sri Lanka is currently looking at bioremediation as a way to process wastewater. And there's an interesting proposal which I'd like to share with the members here. We realized that the trees are perhaps the best form of wastewater processing, natural pumps that you could ever find, because as you know, wastewater, or any sort of polluted water, it's taken up to the trees and up through the leaves, through evapotranspiration, and it forms cloud condensation nuclei. You have rainwater that is pure water. So pumping some water into a city park is a new initiative that we're going to be testing out. Because we believe that the energy that is required to process wastewater for some of the smaller towns would be quite high, and it's better to direct that water into a natural system that can process that. And similarly, we have a very large rainwater gathering reservoir systems built by our kings, some 43,000 reservoirs in the country. And we're looking at the ways in which we can again do some planting and have ponds that will actually process the water. So basically we're looking at the natural system to help us process some of the water for the smaller towns. We can perhaps provide some research results on this at the next UNIA, because that's when we know what the
What's some of the key factors that you're looking at there?
Well, I mean, clearly, the cost for the urban centers, particularly in a developing economy like Sri Lanka, is quite high to process water. I mean, we have water in the Western Province, but certainly in the dry zone, we don't have water. But equally, there's a lot of waste water that we cannot process, and that just gets discharged into the system, and it recharges the groundwater, pollutes the well waters, which most of the village people drink from. So you've got to direct that water into a natural processing system that can actually clean it. So it's a natural system that we're relying on.
Thank you very much. We're close to concluding the session. Is there anyone that has something burning that they really want to add before we end for the day? Yes, Afghanistan. Go ahead.
Excuse me, I'm a member of the UN Environment staff, just sitting at Afghanistan.
Oh, you're just sitting at Afghanistan.
It was an empty space.
But you're a member of the UN staff, is that what you said?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
So
is there any reason you picked Afghanistan?
It was empty.
It was,
it was empty. Yes. No, we've talked a lot about the wonderful initiatives that are going on in these countries. Many of these pollutions, at least air and sea, perhaps to some degree water, are transboundary in nature. So you can have a country that does a wonderful job only to suffer because other countries next to them don't have the same standards. So I would have really liked to have heard about countries moving in concert together, in groups, in this, because really to affect pollution for your citizens, you do have to, in some cases, have other countries doing this, and perhaps that's the next stage of the puzzle.
I think that's an excellent point, and I think that perhaps we'll have the African Union address that issue of cross-country collaboration when it comes to fighting pollution.
Thank you very much. My name is Ambassador Ayo Lukoni. I pray your indulgence to sit in here to make this presentation. And I'm speaking about young Africans under an initiative by the IITA. The IITA is the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture. And they have what they call the Agripreneur Initiative, looking at agriculture and from the perspective of business and also away from the old agricultural perspective in terms of young people, you know, looking at agriculture from the, you know, what you call the typical subsistence farming. The Agripreneur Initiative was also celebrated during the 50th anniversary of the IITA to invite young people to look at agriculture as a business. It's a brilliant initiative in terms of the genetic improvement, a new sustainable approach to agriculture. And I think it's a very important thing. It tackles the whole question of job creation. Even if you have a BA in English, you can take on that. But now looking at sustainable agriculture in terms of, and it's an initiative which I think, I don't know how we can plug it in, looking at UNIA to plug it into it, but the African countries are also, of course, I am a pensioner, retired foreign service officer, and I think a large number of discussion in these forums trying to see how we can bridge the gap between TAN and GAN, and also make sure that indeed the abstraction have concretized. I sincerely hope, you know, somewhere along the line, when we round up this event, such initiative will get a push. Like what is in aviation cycle, a tailwind. Thank you very much.
And what were your thoughts on what was earlier said about the importance of countries and regions collaborating with one another, whether they're youth groups, like you brought up? How critical is that? I mean, obviously it is, but what have you seen that's worked in Africa, for example?
It's a brilliant initiative because, like I said, during the IITA independence, IITA 50th anniversary, IITA, of course, is part of SIGA. So we also have IITA in Tanzania, Uganda, and they all came together and brought in young people, and I think it's a brilliant idea. Best practices, people can share experiences, what worked here, what is not working here, especially in terms of an agriculture, which will take care of all the crises of the issues we're talking about in terms of the environment.
Thank you very much. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation, thank you for your patience, and for sharing some of the practical examples and advice you have to share with the other delegates in this room. Thank you very much.
And of course, we have the last and most exciting of these leadership dialogues coming up in 5 minutes. We have talked a lot about what the science is, how we create the awareness. We talked about an enabling framework of institution and legislation. We talked about the practical solutions. So what is left? How do we fund this? So the next session is going to look at finance. It's also going to look at how we finance innovation. So stay tuned, stretch your legs for about 2 or 3 minutes, and we will start again with the last session of today, looking at finance. Thank you.